The issue of genocide in Iraq and Syria is something that people around the world have been grappling with, but here in Canada, our government has so far refused to act. Majid Al-Shafi and Dalal Abdallah came forward in Ottawa to ask Parliament formally to not only declare genocide, but to act on the issue. Majid, the audience is familiar with you from back in Sun News days. You've been on The Rebel many times, but Dalal, you're new to me. You are a Yazidi human rights activist? Tell me your story.
Well, my parents came from Iraq during the Gulf War. We had to flee for our life to Syria. We walked over to Syria. We stayed in the camps in Syria for about 8 years. And 8 years, the Canadian government sponsored us as refugees to come to Canada at a chance of a better life. I came to Canada, and then this is what I'm doing now, to be a voice for the voiceless back home in Iraq.
So today you were part of the attempt to call on parliamentarians to recognize the genocide of Christians and Yazidis in Iraq and Syria, or just Iraq?
Just in Iraq for the Yazidis. I'm just shocked that Canada hasn't stepped up and declared this as a genocide yet. Every other country in the world, most of the countries in the world have declared this as a genocide. And I would like for my country, Canada, to come forward and to declare this as a genocide. The 5 things that go under the definition of genocide here, Yazidis have been through, and I don't know why it's taken this long.
Now, Majid, you have been on this file on issues of religious persecution, religious freedom for a long time. You've been lobbying parliamentarians. Do you have a sense on why they haven't declared a genocide for Christians and Yazidis in the area?
After you have the EU recognized it as a genocide, the UK, United States, you have to ask yourself why our government does not want to recognize it as a genocide or using it as a political issue. And the answer that I have, really, the only answer or the only conclusion that I can get, when you have a government that wants to do less, by recognizing it as a genocide, that will force them to do more. And I think they're trying to run away from doing more to help the minorities in Iraq, doing more to help the people on the ground in Iraq. They just want to send maybe extra advisors, no fighter jets, no proper accountability to our aid and humanitarian aid that we're sending. And now they're trying to run away from this genocide statement because that will force them morally to do more. But here's the question.
Not legally.
Not legally.
Morally.
But morally.
See, because I was under the impression that legally, if they called it a genocide, they would be required to act.
It is if you have a relationship with this country that's committing genocide. Now, because the Islamic State is not a government or a country or a zone or an area or a region that we have a diplomatic relationship with them or an agreement or an embassies, we don't require legally to act on it. However, morally, we are required to act on it. And One Free World International has been rescuing Yazidi girls in Iraq and in Syria for years and years. We was able to rescue more than 400 Yazidi girls and to bring them to Kurdistan, to the Hawk and Arbil areas to save their life. We literally are buying these girls.
So tell me about that. You're going into essentially modern day slave trading and buying the freedom of these women who were sex slaves.
We was able to monitor the what we call the meat market. That's the name of it in Iraq. And we was able to get 4 locations, to recognize 4 locations. And through my teams on the ground from different communities, without giving too much details, I was able to cross to ISIS territories. And we was able to rescue a lot of these girls by buying them back from ISIS territory, but not by money, by exchanging. So we exchange materials in order to save these girls, because we don't believe that giving money to ISIS will solve the problem, it will make it worse. So we will exchange goods, and we'll in the exchange that we'll rescue the girls and we'll bring them back to the safe shore in Kurdistan. But more important than that as well, or beside that, we asked from the Canadian government to bring 400 Yazidi girls here to Canada to sponsor them. And the government did not respond back to our request. The government completely ignored our request. I admire that the Minister of Immigration met me. It was in an event. He got his chief of staff to call our team, but there was no results whatsoever. And the question that I have to the Canadian government today, 25,000 refugees that you brought, the majority, if not all, is a Muslim Sunni. None of them Muslim Shia, none of them Christians, Yazidi, Kakiyans, none of them, any of the none of them gay and lesbian, none of them of any minority that need to be held, the most vulnerable. Why? Because it's not politically correct?
Well, what they told me was they can't track that information, and it would be wrong to ask someone what their religion is. And my response was, well, I thought you're trying to help the most vulnerable. The most vulnerable are the people being persecuted for who they are. And they said, no, there's no room on our forms to ask these questions.
Which is mean that this government, what they are saying is not what they are doing. When you have, and this is the problem, politically correctness of this government will not help the people on the ground. When you have a prime minister telling you we're not in a war with ISIS, but ISIS in a war with you, and you choose to ignore it, you have a problem. When you have a prime minister that don't want to recognize what's happening to the minorities in Iraq, Yazidis and Christians and Muslim Shias and others, as a genocide, you have a problem. When you have a prime minister want to do what is popular but not what is right, you have a problem.
Dalal, you told us you walked across from Syria, or you walked across into Syria from Iraq and into a refugee camp. These women that are now in Kurdistan, they are feeling maybe like they're free, but in reality, they're not living the life of luxury now, are they?
No, there's no luxury life there. They're struggling. They come back to family members still in ISIS captivity. Some come to some family members, some come to none. It's a hard world. I mean, they're coming to Kurdistan, which is a northern part of Iraq, and they're coming in those streets and living in those tents that sometimes 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 people live in one tent, and these are grown ladies that need treatments, that need psychological trauma, extra treatments, and they don't have that, and they don't have that service there. So how are they going to get better when they are coming back to the same thing? Basically, they're not coming back to anything. There is nothing there for them. They're just coming back and they're in silence. And this is why a lot of girls are committing suicide. If they haven't succeeded yet, they're continuing on. As I'm sitting down with you right now, there's at least 10 girls that are thinking of it, that are attempting to commit suicide. So what are we waiting for?
And these are girls who, until recently, were sex slaves of ISIS. Unreal. The fact is, you were on Parliament Hill trying to lobby the government. Any success?
I put my voice there. I made it clear why I was there. I'm hoping that Canada will stand up. I'm hoping. This has been too long. August 2014, when this genocide began against Yazidis and Christians and other minorities, and this needs to stop today. We need to do something for these people. We can't just play deaf ear on these. We can't just not hear them screaming for our help. We have to do something. As Canadians, I know that as Canadians, when something goes on in the world, we are the first ones to stand up and to give a hand. Why aren't we doing that for the Yazidis?
Majid, we were speaking earlier, and you told me something that, as a father of 2 young girls, I found incredibly shocking. These are girls that have been raped repeatedly daily. How young are they?
Some of the girls that we was able to rescue as young as 9 years old, 8 years old. I rescued one girl was 9 years old. They used to rape her 20 times a day. 20 times a day. Now, as you said, Brian, you have children yourself, and many of our viewers also have children, and I'm sure that this has hurt them in their heart. If you can imagine that this is your daughter, if you can imagine that this is your own flesh and blood, would you just sit down doing nothing about it? But the question here is, even the Prime Minister have children. And I want to ask him, if this was your daughter, would you sit down remaining silent, or would you do everything in your power to rescue her? Not as a Prime Minister only, but as a father.
How do we get them out of Kurdistan? How do we get them to Canada?
No.
I understand that there's some problems in that because they're Yazidis, they're from Iraq, Kurdistan's still part of Iraq, they can't be considered refugees. What do you say to that?
Well, we propose to the Canadian government and private sponsors that we can bring these girls here to Canada. We help as our community side by side with the Catholic Church as well, that wanted to be a partner in this.
The Archdiocese of Toronto is partnering with you.
Yes, absolutely. And the question that we have right now, the legal term of a refugee, that you have to be outside your country to be a refugee. Because Kurdistan is still considered part of Iraq, northern Iraq. That means they consider that this girls is not refugees yet because they're still in Iraq. Well, this is absolutely nonsense. The problem is not what the definition of being refugee. The problem about, and the reality is the people, is these girls. They need help, and they need help now. And with my all due respect, you have 7,000 Yazidi girls that have been kidnapped by ISIS. Now 3,400 still remain under ISIS. Some of them was able to escape, some of them was helped by our NGO and other NGOs, but many of them was killed. Are you waiting until another 3,400 get killed as well, and we lose all the population, all the population of the Yazidis, and then you call it genocide?
The Syrian Archbishop of Aleppo, though, recently said, we don't want everyone to go. We don't want everyone to leave. We want to stay. Help us stay. Is that an answer for the Yazidis, or are these women in such a bad shape, in such a bad position, that leaving is the best answer?
It is the best answer. I mean, how can you recover in the same place that you went through all these traumatic situations? How could you even recover? You can't. You have to take these girls out of that place. You have to give them treatment, and they will give back to the world. Those girls will be a voice for the voiceless, just like I was once. And here I am standing in front of you, being a voice for them. They will come here, they will recover, and then they will contribute to our society. This is what we want. This is what they need. They need to be out of there. They need to be out of there since yesterday, but it's not happening.
All right. How can people help?
The people can go to our website, www.onefreeworldinternational.org or afwe.org, and they can definitely, donation is important, but the most important that you can contact the Prime Minister, you can contact your MP, the media, ask from them to do more for the Yazidi, not just girls, for the Yazidi community in general.
All right, but donations do help, and donations are important. If you want to email the Prime Minister, it's pm@pm.gc.ca, and don't forget to contact your local MP as well. Majid, Dalal, thanks so much, and good luck and God bless in all the work you do.
Thanks for watching. Click here to never miss a Rebel update. Want even more of the Rebel? Well, click here to become a premium member.